The flag carrying method is to be used in case of emergency only, specifically if you lose all communications with your partner. Here's how it works. Step 1. The first flagger hands a flag to the last car allowed to pass. Step 2. The driver is asked to hand that flag to the second flagger at the other end of the setup. Step 3. The second flagger then releases his or her traffic. Again, this is only to be used in case of emergency or total communication failure. It's not the usual way of flagging. Once in a great while, you'll be asked to flag by yourself. However, there are specific conditions that must be met in order for it to be safe for you to flag alone. Here are the conditions: low traffic volume, good visibility, short workspace, short work duration, and low speeds. If any of these conditions don't exist, then don't flag by yourself. If you're flagging alone, notice you should position yourself directly across from the work crews. From this vantage point, you can see the work crew and sufficiently in both directions to control traffic. Sometimes you'll be working a site where there are multiple access points. For example, there may be side streets, active driveways, etc. If this is the case, be sure your team has each access point controlled by a flagger. Remember, your site is only as secure as you make it. If you find yourself flagging at night, know that in general the procedures are the same. However, you do have a few requirements. For instance, you must be wearing ANSI Class 3 apparel. Also, every flagger station needs effective auxiliary lighting. Remember, the goal is to be seen, so be sure every step is taken to ensure your visibility. Accidents will happen, but hopefully not in your work site. However, if an accident does occur in your work site, be sure you do these 3 things. Number 1, notify your supervisor. Number 2, continue to control traffic. Number 3, stay in contact with your team. Remember, your primary responsibility is to control your work site. If that doesn't get done, there's very little anyone can do to help. Also, remember that there will be an investigation into any accident that happens in your work site. If you can, record any pertinent information, take a picture, take notes, draw a diagram. But remember, your first responsibility is to control traffic. If an accident is bad enough, emergency vehicles will need access to your work site. Of course, they must be given priority, but you must give them access in a controlled way. Hold traffic before allowing them to enter. Communicate to your team that emergency vehicles are entering the work site. Keep the area around EMS activities secure, and of course, work with local law enforcement. The Boy Scouts have a saying, always be prepared. Well, that holds true in flagging as well. You need to be ready. But what does ready mean? Well, the dictionary says that ready means being in a suitable state for an activity, action, or situation, fully prepared, or in such a condition as to be likely to do something. So you need to be ready to be a flagger. You need to be ready every day. But the question is, ready for what? Ready for the sun. Ready for the heat. For this you will need sunglasses and neck shades, sunscreen, etc. Know that if you're going to be flagging in Southern California, you're going to spend a lot of time in the sun. Great news if you're prepared. Some say it never rains in Southern California, but those of us who live here know differently. And most of us know that if you're not prepared for the rain, it's probably going to rain. So make sure you have proper waterproof attire, perhaps an extra dry shirt in your bag, an extra pair of socks, and waterproof boots. We need to be prepared when we work in colder climates. For instance, if you're working in the high desert or at night, you need to be ready. Be sure you have a warm jacket, warm gloves, warm socks, and perhaps even a thermos of coffee. It'll make your time in the cold weather that much better if you come prepared. Most days you're going to work from very early in the morning until the evening. They say breakfast is an important meal, and it's really important to have a good breakfast before you start your day. But it's not the only meal, so be sure that you pack a lunch and that you bring some snacks. Finally, we need to bring water. And in our climate, it's a good idea to bring lots of water. On the back of your truck, you should have a water cooler. You want to check that before you leave the yard to make sure that it's filled with fresh, clean, drinkable water. And don't wait until you're thirsty to drink water. Be sure you're drinking a little bit throughout the day. If you've been flagging for any length of time, chances are you've met a couple of NCDs, non-compliant drivers. What makes them do the things they do? Well, sometimes they're tired or preoccupied. Maybe they're the type that like to make their own decisions and really don't want you telling them what to do. Sometimes they have unrealistic expectations of how long a delay should last. Basically, they want you out of the way. So what should you do if an NCD blows your setup? Number one, make sure you are safe. This sounds selfish, but it's the most important thing. Number two, warn your team. Get on the radio and tell them a driver just ran through your setup. Give them a description so they know who to look for. Number three, write it down. Try to get the license plate, a description of the car and driver. But again, the priority is to keep yourself safe. Sometimes communicating with the driving public will help keep your worksite running smoothly. We call this meet and greet. But there are a few guidelines you should keep in mind. Number one, smile. In other words, be friendly. Tell them why. If the instruction to the motorist is to stop, you should tell the first driver the reason for the delay if it's not apparent. Do not abandon your post at the head of the traffic line to advise other drivers, however. Number three, keep it brief. Information should be given in a few brief but courteous words, such as, "We have a crew working just ahead." Number four, keep your distance. Don't lean on a vehicle to talk to the occupants. Be friendly and polite, but do not become preoccupied with small talk. Your job demands your full and complete concentration. Don't argue. Never engage in arguments with the occupants of a vehicle. It is important that you be courteous, yet brief and factual in your conversation with them. And finally, and very important, say thank you. Again, be polite and be professional. Even irritated people feel better when you say thank you. We have a few of what we call rules of the road. Many of these items you've seen before, but they are important enough to be repeated. Here they are. Number one, always be clearly visible. Number two, stand alone. Number three, remain in position. Number four, don't cone your stop-slow paddle. Number five, use two-way portable radios to communicate. Number six, park your work truck well off the road. And number seven, personal cell phones are to be used only in an emergency. Let's conclude by reviewing your three primary responsibilities. Number one, your safety. Number two, the safety of your team. Number three, the safety of the public. Thanks for working through this material with us. Feel free to review the material on previous slides. When you're ready, move forward to take your final exam. Thanks again.